And he listened to you talk about this because it's like it is an outside the box way of thinking about our taxes. It's an outside the box way of thinking about our wealth. Hey, Tiffany, thanks for coming on. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. I know you and I connected through a group online and whatnot and kind of just chit chatted and all that kind of stuff. And then we're like, oh, yeah, so we can dive in. And it's actually probably been 15 minutes or so since we like hopped on together. We've just been like riffing out. So I know this
Yeah.
conversation is going to be so good. Tell us a little bit about you and kind of the journey, the story that kind of got you to where you are right now, serving women and businesses, not just women, but like serving with taxes and things like that.
Yeah. So it really started as a kid. I was telling my son this story actually. He's 12 years old. I was telling him about a week ago, kind of how I started. I realized I'd never shared it with him. And I want my children to understand my legacy and the way that I'm a woman of faith, the way God has used me, the way he has brought me to this point of my life. And it started as a child. I had this deep desire to have my own little businesses. I had a lawn mowing business. I know it's kind of
Yeah.
crazy for a girl to do that, but I did. I made jewelry at one point. I had multiple different things over the years. I went to college, graduated, and I still had this desire to like make money. I remember out of college kind of making phone calls, and I would literally cold call business owners because I'm like, I could do their accounting. This could be a thing. I did not know what I was doing. They did not want to work with me because I didn't even know how to have a conversation with these people. But it was like this desire that was really deeply rooted in me. There was multiple times over the years where I would even look at franchise opportunities. I would look at like different things. I'm like, I want to do my own thing. I want to have my own business. Well, fast forward to about 9 years ago, and I was down that path again and looking at different opportunities. And I remember very distinctly knowing that it was time to just jump off the deep end. I was a single mom at the time. I had no other source of income. I had zero money in savings, like literally was not what most people would consider the most ideal time to start a business. But I really felt it was that point in my life that I needed to make the jump. And so I did. So what I did was I started a CPA firm, really started digging in and just figuring it out. It has been quite a journey over the last 9 years, going from being your standard CPA that's preparing taxes and doing bookkeeping to being more of a strategist, which is what we do now, helping business owners keep more of their money. And that is the Cliff's Notes version of the last, I guess, 46 years of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just want to like normalize too. You said it multiple times in this like sense of like desiring to grow your money and like create money and things like that. And I just want to like normalize it because I think there's a lot of women that feel really guilty about that. Like
Mm,
even just that desire, like I'm in the same boat. Like I grew up, my dad's an entrepreneur and my grandpa's an entrepreneur. I grew up like working in the grocery store. I was actually talking to somebody the other day about like money, right? Like there's so many different businesses and things you can do that don't actually like
mhm.
help people, I guess, in a sense, like laundromats and car washes and these like more truly passive incomes. And I was
Yeah.
saying to him, I'm like, I remember as a kid being in my dad's like little office at the grocery store and like rolling quarters, right? Like from the laundromat. So it's like
Yeah.
I remember always growing up with this really deep desire to create freedom, to create wealth, to be independent, like all of these things. And I think it's been this recent coming to terms with like just really being okay with that and not seeing that as a bad thing because majority of our society really kind of frowns upon women who are really ambitious like that.
Yeah, they really do. And I will say, I was in corporate. I didn't mention that there was definitely a period
Yeah.
of time where I was in corporate and I worked for even other small business owners for a little bit in there as well. And being a woman in middle management, upper management positions was always a
Mm-hmm.
struggle because most of the time there are other men in these management roles. Women are not as represented. And it was very difficult because oftentimes either my bosses or other managers, my peers would
Mm-hmm.
view me as a threat
Mm-hmm.
instead of a collaborator. And unfortunately, what I learned from that was that I needed to lean into my masculine energy. And so I've had to like relearn a lot of that over the
Yeah.
last couple of years and get back to knowing who I am at my core and who I want to be and how I want to be represented. But yeah,
Mhm.
it definitely is something that women are not. I don't know. I hesitate to put it out there that it's like back to the 50s and the 60s where women are just at home or whatever. But I think in a lot of ways that is still out there. There's a girl that I follow online and we kind of have become friends outside of, just
Yeah.
online personas. And she speaks a lot about, being at home and she has her own business, but it's not a full-time business, right? And I honestly kind of pulled back from watching as much as her stuff because I realized that for me personally in my journey, I'm exactly where I need to be doing exactly what I'm supposed to do. And it was that voice of like, do less because you should just be home with your children. That I'm like, but that's great. And I love that so much. I did that for a few years.
Mhm.
But at this point in my life, that's not where God has me. And I had to turn down the volume on that voice
Yeah.
because it was actually making me feel guilty. And I wasn't okay with that.
Totally. And I think that that's like, there's women desires so many different things, right? Like I don't know how I was trying to say that in the first place, but like there's so many different desires that we have as women and there are different seasons. I know for me when my kids were little, that was a strong desire. It was for me to be able to be home with them and to be as present with them as possible. And my business was just a means of making that happen.
Yeah.
And now I have like teens and preteens. I would rather not spend time with them. No, I'm kidding. Like
Right.
but there are plenty of days like I'm like, gosh, it is so much easier for me to show up working than it is to be a parent right now. And I think it's just like being honest that that is part of the journey too. Like it's not that I love them any less. It's not that I don't want to be with them and be in their lives any less. It's just the season of our lives is different. And it's given me a little bit more space to go after those big ambitions and create those big goals.
Yeah.
And honestly, like my oldest, she's almost 14. And the conversations that we have with her, it's all around this idea. Like she is so freaking proud of me and the
Mm,
things that I do. And it's like, okay, that's cool. It's just like that she's cool and proud of me. But I hope so much that she sees like, hey, I can do anything that I want to because I watch mom
absolutely.
do it too. So I think it's just that awareness too that no matter what season you're in, no matter where you're at, like just embrace all of it and cut out the noise of what everybody else is saying because it can be really hard. It can be really hard to see
Mm,
other people doing it a different way and think I should be doing that. Or oh, even I have a friend of mine who travels and she's like, she went to, I forget where she was, like Thailand or Indonesia or whatever. She went for like 3 months. And I was like, oh, that looks
wow.
like so much fun. I would love to
Mhm.
just be working off my computer in some foreign
Mhm.
country. And then, like, I have kids that are in sports and in life. Like, it's just, I can't compare to that right now. So, yeah.
Well, and every stage of life is different.
Yeah.
And even the stage I'm in right now will probably be different a year from now. Like it's
Mhm.
just life is not static.
Mhm.
And the needs that you have, the needs that your kids have, it can and does change.
Yeah.
And that's okay too.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Okay. So I know we were just chit chatting about your book and stuff like that beforehand. And I just ordered my copy. So I'm so excited to
Nice.
get a copy of it. But one of the things that I read was how you talked about like most tax preparers are just preparing your taxes. They're not really strategizing to help you keep your money. And I know as a business owner, that's one of the perks in some ways is that we can write off so many different ways and different things, but a lot of people don't always understand that. They don't always know that. And I know I switched from using, I don't know, however I was using my taxes years ago and switched to
Mhm.
a new guy. And he actually went back and refiled a bunch of previous years because he's like, you missed out on a ton of money here. So
Right.
I think it's very important for women to be really good stewards of our wealth and really good stewards of our business and our money and have a really good understanding of what money's coming in, what money's going out, and how we can really amplify that. Because when women have grow their wealth, that's what creates so much more impact in the world. And so tell us a little bit about that, like that journey for you. one of really seeing that, because I know that's where you're at now, is like really helping people strategize with their taxes, not
Yeah.
just prepare their taxes at the end of the year. So what's the difference?
There's a huge difference actually. And it's admittedly, it's a little difficult because most people think that their CPA is strategizing and reducing their taxes. Oftentimes, I think a lot of times business owners think, well, you're preparing my taxes. Aren't you also reducing them at the same time? And it is a myth in the industry, but it's incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I can pull the curtain back just a little bit, I can tell you when like we still prepare tax returns, right? Like that is a big part of our firm. But the reality is when you're preparing a tax return, there might be a couple of things you're like, hey, if we did this, we could get a little bit more. It needs to be done a little bit differently or whatever. But it is such a small fraction of the time that's actually spent in preparing a tax return. Getting a tax return prepared and doing it properly is extremely important. It is the compliance piece. It is keeping the IRS satisfied. There is no strategy that goes into that. The strategy really comes into play all throughout the year. So our advisory clients, the ones that we help strategize and help them keep more of their money, we meet with them every quarter. We often talk throughout the quarter via email, phone calls, sometimes even extra video meetings. That we are going through and having conversations, getting updates. Where's your business at? How much profit do you have at this point in the year compared to what you thought you were going to? What is the year going to look like? Let's talk about a forecast. Here are a few of the strategies we've already got in place. Let's make sure that they're audit proof. Can you
Mm-hmm.
provide me these documents? Because I want to make sure we have a solid case. And by the way, as we looked at your stuff, we found a few more things that you could be doing that you're not. So let's go ahead and get those going and implement it. It is a very different style of
Yeah.
conversation. It is very proactive. And I would say the biggest thing that most business owners are going to be able to tell whether they're actually getting their taxes reduced or just kind of overpaying, giving the IRS a tip is if the CPA is providing proactive thoughts, like bringing solutions to them. Hey, here are some ideas I have to reduce your taxes. Are any of these of interest to you? Let's get these things going, making sure they're audit proof, and then talking throughout the year. If
Mm-hmm.
those things don't happen, if you're only talking to your CPA when your taxes are being prepared or having a really hard time getting in touch with your CPA, they never want
Yeah.
to respond back to you. You can't get them on the phone, that sort of stuff, then most likely, if I were a betting woman, I would say you are overpaying in taxes. And I see a repayment at a minimum of 20 and 30%, oftentimes a whole lot more than that, depending on the situation.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I would never have imagined it being that much, but it does make sense that, like, I mean, even my taxes are super complicated. Like, we had an Airbnb rental. We
Yep.
rent out our swimming pool to a to a swimming school. And so there's like so much of our house is written off. And like, when we
Hmm.
put in the swimming pool, they did, they
Hmm.
attributed some of that to it. So like they can get really complicated, right? It's not
Yes.
just so for me, even looking at it, like there's so many things that I'm writing through, like, okay, I hope we're checking off this box, this box, this box, this box. But you're so right. Like I'm not talking to her multiple times throughout the year. Occasionally I'll send a message in. Um,
Hmm.
but it's not. Do you feel like every business owner needs to know when it comes to their taxes?
Well, having the right financial advisor, will say it, and I hesitate to say that because we're not talking investments,
Yeah.
but the financial fiduciary, let's say it that way. And having the right partner is one of the biggest decisions that you can make in your business. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that business owners need to know is
Hmm.
it's like, I think, I don't know, it's been a while back on my own podcast. I did a show that was talking about toxic traits of CPAs because I would do sales calls and people would come in and they were talking about the situation with their particular CPA. And I was honestly aghast
Yeah.
at these things that were they would literally come to me and say, "Should I be able to ask questions and get answers?" I'm like rubbing my temple saying, why can't you get an answer to some of these things? Like, what is the deal?" And I think there's been such an issue in the industry for so long that has been swept under the rug, not being able to get phone calls, not be able to get a meeting, only talking to your CPA once a year if you're lucky. All is just this is stuff that you're like, this isn't right, but it's normalized and it
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be normalized. The biggest problem is that in order to get more than that, obviously that's a bigger engagement,
Yeah.
right? Not everybody can afford that kind of an engagement. Sometimes businesses aren't ready for that style of an engagement yet. But as your business is growing and as you are making more money and you are getting more serious, then your finances need to be a part of that. Because one of the things I break down in the book is that people don't realize that taxes are their biggest expense.
Yeah.
It's literally what the book is called, your biggest expense,
Yeah.
because taxes really are number one. Most people think it's labor, cost of goods sold, is taxes. If you really get to thinking about it, your taxes are a huge portion of the money that go out. But again, it's normalized. People say, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
it's just this is what we do." Well, it doesn't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've got someone that can put it in plain English, right? Make it
Mm-hmm.
easy to understand and help show you where these things are, these opportunities are, and then make it legal, like justify it, provide like the IRS, if they ever ask questions, they're going to want like, why? Why did you decide to do this? Well, here's how we justified it. This is exactly how we created the backup. Here's how we audit proofed
Yeah.
the strategy. And it makes a huge difference being able to put that entire story together, the entire piece of the picture.
Yeah. So one thing you mentioned too in there is that like it's determinant of like where your business is at and like if your business is ready for it. I would say a majority of the people probably listening to this podcast are in that vein of maybe making like 50 grand a year to maybe in their first couple $100,000 range. In that is you're still probably paying a chunk of taxes in there, but
Yeah,
may not feel
absolutely.
like really having a lot of this like outside support of a CPA that's really invested in the strategy and all that may not feel like they're at that place yet. So what would
Mhm.
you say for them right now, things that they could do to help kind of keep some of that tax money so that then their business grows a little bit more and then they're able to kind of really invest in somebody who's able to help them do the strategy?
One of the things I talk a lot about is arming yourself with knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
I do not expect anyone to, any small business owner, unless you just really want to learn small business finance and taxes and accounting and be an expert in it. Most people don't. You at least need to have foundational knowledge. We were talking before we hit record about sometimes it's really easy to hand off tasks to other
Mm-hmm.
people and not really know what to do or the right questions to ask or how to do it. And then we hand it off and then we're frustrated maybe with
Mm-hmm.
the result. Taxes are really no different.
Totally.
You don't need to know all the tax code, but you need to know the right questions to ask. You need to know if your CPA is really in your corner or not. And if they're not, then know how to find someone who actually is going to do those things. I have an entire chapter in the book where I'm talking about how to know if your
Yeah.
CPA is fighting on your team or not. And I think so many people are, once they come to me and they go, something is wrong, like there's a gut feel. They know
Mhm.
something's not quite right. But what I find is that there is definitely a journey of getting there,
Yeah.
right? Because it's a new way of thinking about things. I mean, I went through that myself. It was about, I guess at this point, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, when I realized I wasn't doing anything to help my clients reduce their taxes.
Mhm.
And it literally started with a conversation with my dad where my dad had made the most money he had ever made in that particular year, was not sure how he and my mom were going to pay the taxes. And he came to me to say, "Hey, can you reduce these taxes?" And I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know how to do that. I didn't at that point. I had no idea. And I had to go down a journey of figuring that out. And as
Mhm.
I figured it out, I had a hard time finding information. Like, I'm a CPA, right? Like, I
Mhm.
should be able to figure this out relatively easily. It was a struggle and it required a lot of independent learning and research and
Mhm.
finding the right things. And I thought, if it's that hard for someone in the industry, a professional, to figure this out,
Yeah.
then business owners have an even harder time. And that also means that my counterparts, my peers in the industry, also don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
And so, really, just like learning as much as you can on your own, not so that you can prepare a tax return, but so that you can have an intelligent conversation.
Mhm.
And that's vital because otherwise you will easily be blinded by thinking something's being done and it's just not.
Yeah. I think it kind of, I mean, just hearing what you're talking about too is like, it's very complementary or like similar to the medical industry in the sense that like a lot of our doctors are not trained in nutrition. They're not trained in really understanding how all these other things like toxins or all, like, we just don't. They have so much time in medical school. We can't cover everything, right? It's kind of the same. It sounds
Exactly.
like it's the same idea in the sense of like the CPAs is that
Hmm.
this strategy piece wasn't always taught. I think even looking at like the schooling and education system was really built around creating employees, right? It was in the age of the industrial era, and we were training kids and people to become future workers. And so when we look at like all of these systems, when we look at the medical system, we look at the educational system, we look at the financial systems, and we look at all these, I mean, in all honesty, like the government doesn't want you to strategize and save money on your taxes. They want to keep as much of that money. And so, just systemically, that's probably not a conversation that really has been brought up. And like you said, no, to no fault of the CPAs intentionally themselves, they just weren't educated on this. And it's really fascinating to kind of sit there and listen to you talk about this because it's like it is an outside the box way of thinking about our taxes. It's an outside the box way of thinking about our wealth and how it does require, like I talk about it a lot, and especially in the health space, is that the
Hmm.
more that a woman is empowered with understanding what's happening inside of her body, the better advocate she's going to be. And when she goes to her
Yeah.
doctor and she asks the question and she says, hey, why is this not happening? And the doctor doesn't have any idea. The hope is that the doctor is then able to kind of start digging and do some more research and expand. And that's how medicine expands, right? Kind of the same as what I'm hearing from you is kind of the same idea of like, if me as a business owner understands some of these things and can not necessarily have all of the capabilities to make it happen myself, but can go to my
Right.
CPA with those questions, right? Like to ask the like, hey, is this like this the right way? Or is this, can we do this? Can we adjust here? Like this year was the first year that I know of, it must have been because my kids all have investment accounts. And apparently their investments grew enough that this was the first year I actually had to pay taxes on their investments as well. And when it came to me, I was like, wait a second, So I'm like reaching out to my financial person, reaching out to my CPA, like, are we all on the same board here? Like, is this really what's supposed to be happening? Right. And but then now it's brought up those questions of like, is this how we want to strategize going forward? Like, is this the best place to be putting money? So, or like, all those things. But it comes from me asking the questions. And so I think that that's what you're saying too, is like how your book can help do that and how researching can help do that and how we can really empower ourselves to understand how it should be or how it could be, or even not even having all the pieces, but just asking better
Yeah.
questions.
Right. It really is a matter of asking better questions because I think we could both agree that when I have a client or when you have one of your clients come to you and ask a very intelligent, very thought through question, something that you
Mhm.
can tell they kind of have an idea of what's going on. They don't know all the answers, which is why they're coming to you. They're like, "Hey, what about this?" It is honestly, it's a whole lot more fun,
Yeah.
right? Engaging with them because then like they really care and they're really interested. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, let's partner together to make this happen, right? And you mentioned kind of the medical piece of it, the
Mhm.
industry. You're right. It is honestly very similar. It would be like me needing to have brain surgery or me needing to find someone to help me get rid of mold exposure that is, impacting my health. And I'm trying to go to like a general practitioner for either of those.
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to well, first of all, if I'm having brain surgery, I don't want a general practitioner doing that,
No.
right? I
No.
want a specialist to cut into my head because they've done this a
Yeah.
lot and they know exactly what they're doing. If I am trying to treat this mold exposure or whatever it is, right? I'm having hormonal issues and I'm trying to like get to the root of those problems, then I'm going to want someone who has had some experience doing that and seen a lot of success because then they're going to help point me in the right direction versus going to someone who has no idea because they're just not versed. And maybe all they want to do is give me a pill. Well, maybe I don't want a pill. Maybe I really
Mhm.
want to get to the root cause of this and find the solution. So yeah, there's a huge correlation there. And it really speaks to, I mean, when you're working with someone who's a specialist, it makes a world of difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the whole reason I wrote this book was because, and the reason why I have my own podcast, Small Business Finance Podcast, is to create easy to understand, easy to follow information, because I feel like personally, there's not enough of that out there.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there is a lot of, maybe it's mansplaining. I don't know. We'll put that out there as a potential issue, where it's almost complex on purpose.
Yeah.
Like, let's make it really confusing for everybody. Like, I mean, yes, it is confusing. Yes, it is complex. It doesn't have to be that hard. It truly doesn't. And the other thing that I was thinking of when you were talking, so you mentioned that the government doesn't actually want us to reduce our taxes. So I thought that for a really long time. One of the things I talk about in the book is that, and I went down a journey
Mm-hmm.
of considering that. Like, is that really true? Is that what's happening here? And it actually landed on the opposite. Let me
Interesting.
kind of explain,
Yeah.
because everyone that I've explained this to, they go, "Whoa, I've never thought about that before. That's fascinating." And I think you're right. So buckle up. The government, actually, Congress writes tax laws, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that do that. They put it in there for the IRS to then oversee. There are laws in there. Let's think about COVID relief. Five
Mm-hmm.
years ago, or doing PPP and EIDL and all this kind of stuff, right? They put the PPP loans out there to help business owners, right? Tax laws are really the same way. They put laws out there to incentivize behavior. So if you think about real estate specifically, that's a really good
Mm-hmm.
example. The real estate industry, things like segregation studies, 1031 exchanges, various depreciation things that you can do, various write-offs that you can do that are very industry specific. They do that because they want to incentivize investment in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
There are lots of different things when it comes to even fringe benefits with employees. Work opportunity tax credit is one of them, where you actually get significant benefits for hiring certain categories of people. Retirement plans in your business. There's a lot of different things. They are
Mm-hmm.
literally incentivizing a behavior
Yeah.
and giving a benefit to the owner as a result. And so really, what I have found through going through and strategizing and helping business owners reduce their taxes is, it's not a matter of can you reduce your taxes, it's what's the best way to do so, because the IRS is literally incentivizing business owners and investors to reduce their taxes. If you are one or both of those, then there are plenty of laws out there to reduce your taxes. It's just a matter of figuring out the right ones that fit your specific scenario, because they realize businesses create headcount, they hire employees,
Mm-hmm.
they grow, they expand, they actually let more money back into the economy. And then
Yeah.
they realize with investors that they're doing the same thing, just on a different level. And so
Yeah.
they actually use the tax code to incentivize that. The employees are actually the ones who are, not getting the advantage, because to your point, that is the highest taxed category is employees. And to your point,
Yeah.
like, there's nothing in it for the government other than having worker bees for employees. They want business owners and investors
Mm-hmm.
to expand. So they
Mm-hmm.
give them the bonuses to do so.
And that just comes from like an economy stimulation type of, like, the more robust,
Absolutely.
the more businesses, the bigger the economy flourishes, the more advancement. That makes sense. Yeah, that
Yep.
totally makes sense. Do you see, like, have you, I'm over the course of the decade or whatever that you've been doing this particular type of work and stuff, have you seen a change based on different political stances, different presidential stances, like things like that? Because that definitely makes a huge difference. Like, if you, in the trickle down of all of those different
Mhm.
policies and things, like, have you seen shifts and changes overarching?
Absolutely.
We don't have to get like super political, but like,
Yeah.
what does that really look like, and how have you seen that change?
Yeah. In 2018, with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, that was about the time
Mhm.
that I was really realizing the power of tax planning and reduction.
Yeah.
And so it was a huge tax bill. It's actually getting ready to sunset at the end of this year. So there's lots of tax changes that, I mean, I'm surprised we don't have anything yet for that. We will, I'm confident, soon. And because those laws are set to go away. If they go
Mhm.
away, there's going to be some massive impacts, especially to small business owners. And I think there's a huge opportunity there as well. And because Trump's actually the one that put those laws in place, I would imagine most of them are going to stay. There's going to be some changes, but for sure, each time we have a change in political party, different presidents and whatever, House and the Senate, whoever's in control, it absolutely makes a huge difference for anyone who, which may or may not with your audience, does any sort of research and development. That particular tax credit has had a huge impact, a very negative impact over the last few years, where business owners have been paying more in taxes because they're not getting as much of a benefit from that. And the last administration didn't kind of continue that and fix it before it sunsetted. So because of that, a lot of business owners are paying more taxes. And so anytime we have new administration, things are going to change. Frankly, there are new tax laws that come out regularly. A lot of people don't realize that there are
Yeah.
constant changes. So staying up on that or working with someone who is very important because it makes a huge difference in how much money you're keeping or not. Every year, the tax brackets change. There's constantly changes that take place. And so almost like a little bit of an uphill battle that we really have to be very proactive with to make sure that we're keeping as much money as possible. It's like I always link it back to things like trying to lose weight, right? If you were looking to lose 10 or 15 pounds, maybe more, whatever, you're going to focus on that. You're going to step on the scale most days. If I had to take a guess, when you order your groceries or when you go to the grocery store, you're going to be very focused on what types of food you're ordering and not ordering because you have a specific goal in mind. Tax savings is really the same thing. If you're wanting to keep more of your money, it's like, okay, well, how do we do this? And you're going to be focused on it. You're going to be paying attention to it. You're going to be having conversations about it. You're going to do things like read my book or whatever, right? Doing your
Yeah.
independent research to find out like what are some of the other things that could be done because the landscape constantly changes. And if you're not paying attention, then you will pay too much. Like there's just no way around that.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. I mean, yeah, I think it's one of those things like the more that we stay aware, the more that we stay intentional. I think it really just comes to the sense of, I think a lot of times too, what I see happen a lot, probably with the clients that I work with and then the spaces is like, I work with a lot of people who are coaches and healers and they want to create these massive impacts. And so it's like the passion and the purpose drives what they're doing. So then the numbers and all the details and all that sort of logical side of it kind of gets tucked out the side and they're like, I don't really want to focus on that. I don't really want to pay attention to it. But like what we're talking about too is like in this call is like we have to prioritize both. Like you have to be at least aware of what's happening. You have to at least have your fingers and a pulse on where am I being a really good steward and where am I being a really good strategist. And I think that's really important. Like it's one of those things like I know for me, even in the beginning, I was like, I'm going to invest in this and that and whatever and get to the end of the year. I'm like, man, I made no money because I invested literally everything. Right. And it's just really important for us, I think, to really have a pulse on what's happening, what's the health of our business from a financial perspective.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, honestly, numbers are really not fun for most people. I mean, even myself, like I do so much now with content creation, marketing, and training my business and really leading my team and doing all these things, right? Like numbers are not at the top of my list either, if I'm just being really
Yeah.
transparent. Like it's not like I go, yay, I'm going to do my financials today. I am so excited, right? But it is something, what we'll label it necessary evil, right? Like it is something that you need to pay attention to because if you don't, then it's not going to be what it could be. In fact, it's probably going to be quite a bit off target. It'd be like saying you want a really healthy marriage and then like never spending time with your spouse.
Yeah.
Like that just it doesn't work. It doesn't jive. So like what really is your goal? If you're wanting to grow, you're wanting to be a good steward of your money and you're wanting to keep as much as you can, then you need to at least pay attention to it a little bit. It doesn't have to be an obsession. You don't need to like constantly look at it. You know, you don't need to learn everything there is to know about tax or bookkeeping or learning how to read a financial statement, but you need to be making progress and like taking steps on that regularly because what you measure you can change. What you're paying attention to is going to have an impact and ignoring it will quite literally do the opposite.
Totally. Yeah. And I would hate for anyone listening to get to the end of the year and feel like they have this massive tax bill that they were not prepared for. I think I even just read something recently.
There's nothing worse. I mean,
Yeah.
even on our end, right? When someone comes to us, maybe we have not worked with them ever before, they just realize something's wrong and they at least want to kind of understand like what they can do. And we start talking about how much they're overpaying, they become a client. Sometimes they have not been paying in any
Hmm.
taxes during the year. Sometimes they have no idea what to do. It can be a bit of a hurdle to get past that and actually get to a place of proactivity. It's honestly horrible how many business owners just really have no idea what they should be doing.
Yeah.
And taxes are one of those things because it is such a big piece of the pie that it really only takes 1 year of getting behind, especially when you're in a growing business where your taxes are going up every year, to really find yourself in a lurch and create a major problem. And
Mm.
digging out of the hole is, while not impossible, there are things that you can do to kind of get get your hands around it, kind of do better. It's stressful. And it's not, if you can avoid that, then you really should,
Yeah.
because it's just, it's not a situation you want to get yourself in trouble with. I've seen it way too many times where people come to me and they're behind, haven't paid taxes or filed taxes in years, and it can be pretty devastating
Yeah.
financially.
For sure. I was actually reading him a book this morning. He was saying he, again, at the beginning of his business, or he was doing tax or stock
Mhm.
trading. And it was like he had heard that you didn't have to, I don't remember if it was like he thought he didn't have to file his taxes for 3 years or something. I mean, it was like, oh no, the IRS just doesn't come after you for 3 years, but you should be doing it every year. So then it was like this was the thing that broke him. And it was a big deal for him at that point. So I know we've covered so much today. Is there anything that you feel like you want to make sure people leave with that they know before we wrap up today?
I mean, I think it really goes back to arming yourself with knowledge,
Hmm.
not coming at it with the high expectation of perfection or being an expert, but really just taking ownership of your
Yeah.
finances. It, even if you're more of a creative type and you would rather be creative than look at numbers, that's okay too. But take ownership of it and find someone who wants to partner with you. Find someone who wants to educate you, because that one partnership in your business will really make or break how far, how much money you'll make, all the things. So I just want to emphasize that because it
Yeah.
is such a crucial thing. And lastly, I'll say if you have kind of this gut feel that something's wrong, then you're right. And trust that, lean into
Yeah.
it, and then find a better solution.
Yeah. So good. Speaking of solutions, I would, like I said, I just ordered a copy of your book. I will make
Yeah.
sure that your book is linked up in the show notes for people so that they can go grab a
Yes.
copy as well. But do you want to highlight and share a little bit about what they could expect? I know we've covered some of what they could expect inside the
Yeah.
book, but like, why should people go grab your book?
So the book is written to be easily digested. I've said it multiple times, like my whole MO is making finance for your business easy to digest and easy to understand. And so it is not the super lengthy book. Like, it is very much something that you could have read in probably just a few hours. I have 10 of my top tax saving strategies. Say that 3 times. The 10 of my top tax saving strategies in the book. If you buy it through the link that you're going to have, I actually include some really cool bonuses as well, including 3 other tax saving strategies, how to audit proof your business, the audio copy if you would rather listen to it in the car versus read the actual book. There's so many cool things there. So definitely get the book, use that as a baseline to just almost self assess.
Hmm.
Because, like I said, it does give information on how to know if your CPA is really working for you or the IRS, whether or not you're in the categories of being able to leverage the tax laws, and then really dig in to see which ones make the most sense for your business.
So good. So good. And where can people find you on the internet and follow along with what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and TikTok. Um, I will share those links with you as well. I definitely share regular content on both. I have a podcast, Small Business Finance Podcast, which has just so much information on various tax strategies, how to audit proof your business, how to simplify the finances. And then I even share money mindset tips and tricks and things like that as well.
Oh, because we know that makes such a huge difference. Like the way that we think and relate to money. Like, I mean, it's fascinating to watch. I remember years ago, a friend of mine saying, it doesn't matter how much you make, it's the relationship that you have with it that makes the difference. And
100%.
it was fascinating. I pulled out some old statements of like my husband and I's, not W-2s, but like our pay stubs, like when we first got married. And then like seeing
Yeah.
how much money we made at that point in time, I was like, holy crap, like compared to what we make now. And it's like some of those same conversations, there's the same conversations that we have, like, or that we've had, you know, around like, oh, it's at the end of the month. Like, how are we going to pay for this? Or what are we going to do for this? And it's like,
Right.
wow, those things don't go away unless you address
Mhm.
them, no matter how much money you're making. And it's the same in business, right? It's like, it doesn't matter how much money your business is making. If you get these principles right when it's small, then it makes it so much easier to scale. Then all we
Absolutely.
do is amplify it when more money is there. So yeah, so good. Well, Tiffany, thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure to have you. And I know I walked away with so much, and I appreciate you sharing and kind of that, like, let's challenge and shake up kind of that financial space. And I know I have a lot of people come on here and like challenging that status quo in the health space and business space and stuff. And so this is just one of those other areas I really think it is vastly important for us to really start looking and evaluating and asking better questions, like asking those deeper questions, and instead of just taking everything for what it is and how it's been. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.